And so here we are coming to the conclusion, the culmination of this series entitled Cross Examination. We go back to the beginning, the term meant to get to the truth, to get to the heart of the matter. We've already spoken about four aspects, four powers of the cross. We started with that the cross lifts us up. And being lifted up by Christ, we're given the power to help lift one another up. The cross leads us to the glory of the Father. The cross is a tool for building up God's kingdom on earth. And of all the things that Christ used to win for us our salvation, the forgiveness of sins, he used the cross. The cross is the key to the heart of God, which is love. Now we come to that power of the cross, in which these first four steps leads us to what is probably the greatest power behind the cross. And so therefore the fifth and the most important, the most powerful aspect of the cross is this, that the cross is the gift, and it is a gift, that helps us to live out our lives in Jesus. The cross helps us to live out our lives in Jesus, with him and in him. The accepting of the cross is to live in imitation of Jesus. Jesus Christ, he lived the greatest commandment. You shall love the Lord your God with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your body, with all your strength, with all that you are. And Christ, by accepting the cross, lived out this commandment to its perfection. Again, we go back to what our Lord says in the gospel. No greater love than to lay down your life for your friends. Here at the parish of St. Francis de Sales, we have two words that encase completely our mission. What are those two words? My good people, you know what these two words are. So we can say them together. Live Jesus. Those are the two words. And it's in those two words, live Jesus, we take a look now at what is happening throughout our world, throughout our country, and throughout our communities. We're going through a time of trial, of testing, of tribulation, anxiety, uncertainty, sickness, death. This is what we're living in at this time. And so, what do these two words, live Jesus, what do these two words invoke within us? How is our heart moved with these two words? Live Jesus. I need to go to Mark's Gospel, chapter 5. It's the storm on the sea. Jesus Christ just finished preaching and teaching to the people. He's exhausted. He gets into the boat with his disciples and he promptly falls asleep. The disciples make their way to the other side and they're rowing. Storm comes up. It's a terrible storm at that. But yet you can tell how exhausted Jesus is. He's still asleep. And so they come to him. They wake him up. And in the midst of the storm, the disciples say these words, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? Do you not care that we are about to die?" I have a feeling we're saying those same words today. Father, do you not care that we are perishing? Probably other words we are saying might be, Father, are we not important to you? Father, don't we matter to you anymore? Or how about this one? Father, are we no longer loved by you? How must the heart of the Father react to those words that are coming to him from us as children? How is his heart reacting when he hears in our weakness and in our fear, Father, are we no longer loved by you? I don't think he'll blame us for asking that question. Let's take a look to the gospel. We know the story of the death of Lazarus. And Martha, hearing that Jesus is coming, days after Lazarus dies, even though they let him know that he was dying, Martha comes out to meet our Lord, and she takes the Lord to task. Lord, had you been here, my brother would never have died. You know, Scripture is very clear that Jesus loved Martha and Mary and Lazarus very much. They were his friends. They opened their home to him. They had him become a part of their family. Why didn't he come? And there's a question that we very much ask even to this day. God, where are you? I love this story about the person of St. Catherine of Siena. St. Catherine of Siena was a Dominican sister, Dominican nun. And she was in love with God. She was in love with Jesus Christ. She even went through what is known as a mystical marriage with Jesus, the bridegroom. And there was one time St. Catherine of Siena was coming back from going to Mass, being able to receive Holy Communion. She went back to her parents' house. Her room was kind of a prayer room. So she went there. And no sooner had she entered her room than all of a sudden she was assaulted with these impure thoughts. People dancing in an impure way. And they just assaulted her. And she was crying out to the Lord for help. And after a while, the assault ended. She was exhausted from that trial. And she's crying out to her bridegroom, Jesus, where were you? Where were you? Where were you? And he responded to her, I was with you. Well, that wasn't good enough for her. And so she took her bridegroom to task. Where were you? Where were you? Where were you? The Lord finally answered her. I was in your heart. That's what the Lord is saying to us today. I'm in your heart. The cross is the manifestation. The cross is the proof that God is with us. His mercy and his love are always present. What I'm about to say next is of extreme importance. Really need for you to hear these words. They are that important. When we accept the cross, don't have to like it, but when we accept the cross, when we carry the cross, God the Father looks at us as if he was looking at his only begotten Son. That's how the Father sees us. He sees us as his only begotten Son with a love beyond all telling. That's how the Father looks at us. We need to know that. We need to understand that. With the cross, we live Jesus. The cross sees us through the storms of life. The cross is not the cause of the storms. The cross, rather, is the remedy for the storm. Christ on the cross, imitating him by carrying our cross, manifests this one amazing truth, and that is we are never alone. Christ always is in communion with his Father. Now more than ever, we have the power to have that communion with one another. We're feeling isolated. We're feeling alone. We're feeling alienated. The power of the cross gives us the strength to reach out. And I know the feeling. I know isolation. This past Friday, we had, at the Knights of Columbus, they had their crab cake sale. The delivery was made. People were coming to pick up their order. Well, I went over. It was my opportunity within 10 days to finally get to be with my parishioners, to be with my friends. I loved it. They came in and they left, but it was beautiful. We are never alone. We are one in this crisis, and we will not be defeated. The cross is the power of transformation. Its purpose is to configure us to be more like the person of Christ. Let me ask you this question. What will we be as a people and as individual persons? What will we be like after this crisis passes? It's a powerful question. People may say that they can't wait for the crisis to be over so they can get back to the way things were. God forbid that should happen. God forbid that we should have that attitude. Christ did not suffer and die on the cross so that things could go back to the way they were. Christ died on the cross so that we could enter into a newness of life. What is that newness of life? Perhaps that newness of life is not to take things for granted. Not to take people for granted. Not to take our spouse for granted. Not to take our children for granted. Not to take our families and our friends for granted. Not to take our relationship with God for granted. Not to take our lives for granted. What is going to be new about us as a community and as individual persons when this crisis passes? Believe it or not, the coronavirus has a purpose. God knows what he's doing. Let's face it, it has our attention. It has our attention. This past Thursday, we received, it was on the news, that the public celebration of Masses during Holy Week has been canceled. No public Masses to be celebrated on Easter Sunday. Who would have ever thought? Who would have ever thought? God is getting our attention. And as the Lord is always saying in the Gospels, come to me. Come to me. I ask you to do this sometime during the week. As an individual, or as a couple, or as a family. Go to the cross in your homes. Physically go there. Go to the cross in your homes. And there pour out your heart. Tell him who is love, nailed to the cross, tell him everything that's going on in here. Tell him everything. And when you do that, watch for the transformation that will take place. And that transformation being, live Jesus.